Welcome to The Explainer. You know, we love to take big ideas and make them super clear, super actionable. And today we're tackling something huge: habits. Why do some stick while others just fizzle out? We're going to get into the science of it and show you how to build a system that pretty much guarantees you'll succeed. All right, let's kick things off with this game-changing idea from James Clear. You know how we think that to get what we want, we just need bigger goals, more willpower, right? Well, he says that's totally wrong. The truth, your results, they're just a reflection of your habits over time. Think about it. Your net worth, that's just a measure of your financial habits. Your weight, a measure of your eating habits. See the pattern? In the end, you don't get your goal, you get your system.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You get super excited, you commit to a new diet or a new gym routine, or maybe you're gonna finally write that book. And then, a few weeks later, poof, you're right back where you started. It is so frustrating. And it's really easy to just blame yourself, like, oh, I just don't have enough motivation. But the real reason is way more interesting. It actually has everything to do with how our brains are wired.
So what's this number all about? Well, get this. Researchers found that almost half of everything we do, every single day, isn't a conscious choice. Nope, it's a habit. It's your brain running on autopilot in the background. So when you try to change, you're not just fighting against, wanting that cookie. You are literally fighting a deeply programmed unconscious pathway in your brain. No wonder it's so hard.
Okay, so if setting these huge, ambitious goals isn't the key, then where are we going wrong? Well, it turns out the problem often isn't actually you. It's your expectation of how progress is supposed to look. We have this idea that progress should be a nice, neat, straight line. You put in a week of hard work, you expect to see a week's worth of results. Makes sense, right? But that's not how it works at all. The most powerful results are always delayed. There's this super frustrating gap, what James Clear calls the plateau of latent potential, where you're doing all the right things, but nothing seems to be happening. And that right there is where most of us give up, right before the breakthrough.
So the big question is, how do you push through that plateau? The most effective way, it isn't about focusing harder on the goal. It's about flipping the whole problem on its head and starting with who you are.
Okay, picture this. Behavior change has 3 layers, kind of like an onion. On the outside, you've got your outcomes. That's what you get, like losing weight. The next layer in is your process. That's what you do, like going to the gym. But the core, the deepest and most powerful layer, that's your identity. It's what you believe about yourself. And here's the secret. Real, lasting change always works from the inside out.
Just look at the difference this makes. On one side, you have the typical outcome-focused goals, but on the other, it's all about identity. The goal is no longer just run a 5K, it's become a runner. It's not write a book, it's become a writer. See the shift? Because if your actions don't line up with who you believe you are, they're just not going to stick. The real mission here is to make your habits match the person you want to be.
And this is exactly how you do it. Think of it like this. Every single action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. You make your bed? That's a vote for being an organized person. You go for a run, even a short one? That's a vote for being a runner. It's not about one big heroic moment. It's about stacking up these tiny votes, one after another, until the evidence becomes undeniable.
Okay, so if the goal is to cast these votes for our new identity, how do we, actually do it? Well, this brings us to a really practical step-by-step guide for building these habits. It's called the 4 laws. So deep inside every habit, good or bad, is this simple 4-step loop running in your brain. First, there's a cue, a trigger. That leads to a craving, the motivation, which leads to a response, the habit itself, and finally a reward, that feeling of satisfaction. Think about your phone. It buzzes. That's the cue. You instantly want to know who it is. That's the craving. You pick it up, the response, and you satisfy that curiosity, the reward. This little loop is running our lives constantly.
So if we want to build good habits and break bad ones, all we have to do is take control of that loop. We need to engineer it, and that's exactly what these 4 laws of behavior change are for. To build a good habit, you need to make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying. And if you want to break a bad habit, you just flip them. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. Simple, right?
All right, let's dive into the first law. Make it obvious. It's so simple. You're way more likely to do something if the trigger for it is staring you right in the face. This is all about designing your environment for success. You want to read more? Easy. Put a book on your pillow. Want to drink more water? Fill up a water bottle and put it on your desk.
You're basically making the starting signal for your new habit impossible to miss.
And there's this incredible study that shows just how powerful this is. During the Vietnam War, a shocking number of American soldiers developed heroin addictions. But here's the wild part. When they came home, almost all of them quit, basically overnight. Why? Because all the cues were gone. The stress, the environment, their fellow soldiers. It showed the addiction wasn't some moral failing. It was a response to a specific environment. And that's the key takeaway. People with amazing self-control aren't superhuman. They're just masters at designing their lives so they don't need to use it.
But just having an obvious cue isn't always going to cut it. Which brings us to the second law, make it attractive. This is where you pair something you want to do with something you need to do. Like say, you only let yourself listen to your favorite podcast when you're at the gym. But okay, even then, what if the new habit just feels like this huge, overwhelming thing? Well, that's where the third law, make it easy, becomes our secret weapon.
So what's this number all about? It represents the 2-minute rule. And the idea is just brilliant in its simplicity. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
Now, the key here isn't about results. It's about mastering the art of showing up. Read a book every day becomes read 1 page. Run 3 miles becomes just put on my running shoes. You're not focused on the outcome yet. You're just trying to become the kind of person who doesn't miss workouts. By making it ridiculously easy to start, you're building that habit muscle, making showing up the automatic part. You can always scale it up later.
And that brings us to the last piece of the puzzle, the fourth law, which might just be the most important one of all. Make it satisfying. To get a habit to truly stick, it has to feel good. Your brain needs to get that little hit of success right away.
See, the number one rule of behavior change is simple. What is rewarded is repeated. But the problem with most good habits is that the reward is way off in the future, right? You don't get a six-pack after one sit-up. So, habit tracking solves this. Just the simple act of putting a big X on a calendar after you do your habit, that gives you a little bit of immediate satisfaction. It closes the loop in your brain and makes you want to do it again tomorrow.
And what happens is habit tracking creates this beautiful visual chain. You get a streak going. And after a few days, something funny happens to your motivation. It's not just about doing the habit anymore. Now the game is, don't break the chain. You're trying to keep that streak alive. But, and this is super important for making it work in the real world, you don't have to be perfect. Life is going to get in the way. So the rule isn't never miss. The rule is never miss twice. Look, anyone can have a bad day. Missing once is an accident. But missing twice, that's the start of a new unwanted habit. The people who succeed are just the ones who get back on track really, really fast.
So when you boil it all down, the big takeaway here is this. Building better habits isn't about willpower. It's not about some heroic, superhuman effort to change yourself overnight. It's about being an architect. It's about designing a smarter system for yourself, an environment filled with small, easy actions that just naturally guide you toward success.
So let's end with this one thought. Just for a second, forget about the massive, life-altering transformation. The path to those incredible results doesn't start with some giant leap. It starts with one tiny 2-minute step. So my question for you is, if every action is a vote for your future self, what's one tiny vote you can cast today?